Welcome to Fox Sports Inside Fantasy, brought to you by Burger King. I'm Jill Arrington, joined by our fantasy expert, Mike Harmon. Mike, Monday Night Football means we need to make some big decisions, possibly final decisions for our fantasy year. Could be the difference starting and sitting the right guy. So let's talk Saints and Seahawks and give us your starts in this game.
As you say, this could be it. For many leagues, this is the last of the regular season. And what a difficult way to go out. As you look at two defensive juggernauts, looking at the New Orleans Saints coming in, Rob Ryan directing traffic. You've got Seattle and the Legion of Boom. But I'm not going away. I'm dancing with who brung me. That's what it comes down to. Drew Brees, week in, week out, fantastic fantasy play. Yes, occasionally he will try to force the ball downfield, take the big play. Here with Seattle, you're looking at 10.8 fantasy points allowed per game to quarterbacks. I'm throwing that out the window a bit. That's over a season. That includes, well, some cupcakes on the schedule. And we look at this defense right now. It's not the defense we saw in week 5 or week 6. We've had some attrition via injuries and suspensions in that secondary. And I think Drew Brees, the way he distributes the ball, I don't know that there's any one guy that you target outside of, well, the dominant Jimmy Graham. We'll talk about him more in a second, is that the running backs get into the mix, and you have a couple of receivers that maybe you can get the big play downfield. But the fact that he doesn't just target one receiver is, I think, what separates him from all the other quarterbacks that have come through. We're also looking on the other side of the ball. We're looking at Russell Wilson. And, again, a guy who distributes the ball, doesn't make the big mistakes. You have the dominant running game. And what we look at with Russell Wilson is that he will tuck the ball and give you some yards on the ground and call his own number in and around the goal line. And I look for this not to be a defensive struggle where it's Hartley and Hauschka going at it. I think we're going to see some points scored here. Question is, who in the receiving core are going to come up with the big plays, but I think both quarterbacks get it done. So we keep moving on. You look at Marshawn Lynch, one of the few running backs we've been able to say, set it, forget it, all season long. He's only had 3 games with fewer than 10 fantasy points on the year. Jacksonville, where the game was already well in hand, get him out. Carolina, we've seen what their defense is about. And then that game against St. Louis where there wasn't much scoring going on at all. The St. Louis run defense played well. You look on the other side of the ball, you got Pierre Thomas coming in with a solid running game, receiving game, a guy creeping up around 100 total yards each and every week with the outside shot at a score. And I mentioned Jimmy Graham. Near to 1,000 yards on the season, already into double-digit touchdowns. The walking mismatch. Question here is, how much does Richard Sherman spy him and try to cover him downfield on the seam? I think even with Sherman on him, and we can expect that that's going to be the case, you're still going to have those red zone opportunities where nobody's getting the ball from Jimmy Graham.
All right. I like your thinking, though, because I'm going up against the Saints defense, so I need Seattle to put up some big numbers.
Okay.
All right. What about your sits? A couple of guys you're weary of putting in there this week.
Just fearful of Marcus Colston. We talk about Drew Brees putting up his numbers, but over the course of the year, it's come through a variety of weapons. Marcus Colston has not been that guy. No. Only 2 games with double-digit fantasy point totals on the year. Only 3 games with 80 or more receiving yards, just 2 touchdowns on the season. I just can't go there in this big primetime kind of game. He's no better than a 3rd wide receiver on your fantasy board at this point. You look at Golden Tate, another guy, big play potential. We talked about the St. Louis game. He had the 2 touchdowns in there. You remember, only 4 games with double-digit totals for him. When he hits in a big way. So if you need to roll the dice for a high ceiling, high risk reward guy, maybe Golden Tate's your play. But I think you've just seen too many opportunities. 5 games where he scored 3.3 points or fewer.
Yeah, inconsistent for numbers.
3.3 points or fewer in 5 games. I want no part of that with a playoff berth on the line.
Well, Mike, we can't let you go without a sleeper, so give us a guy that can steal some points on Monday night.
Oh, let's roll the dice. Go with a couple of long plays. We look at Kenny Stills. Who's the guy going to separate from the defensive secondary for Seattle? Stills the guy, big play threat. 4 catches of at least 34 yards on the season. We've seen him score a couple of long touchdowns. But is it Lance Moore? Is it Robert Meacham back from exile in San Diego? Which one will it be? And then we're looking for Seattle. Doug Baldwin, at least 63 receiving yards in the last 3 weeks, 2 touchdowns in that period. He's become more of a go-to guy. You look at him, you look at Jermaine Kearse, maybe you go to Zach Miller, the tight end, but now we're reaching deep. And I don't know that I want to wade in those waters with so much on the line.
Oh, I'm on the fantasy bubble. I hope you guys take his advice. All right, Mike, that'll do it for Fox Sports Inside Fantasy, brought to you by Burger King. For Mike Harmon, I'm Jill. See you next time.